The telephone, a device so integral to our everyday lives that it's hard to imagine a world without it. Let's take a moment to journey back in time, to explore the fascinating history of this revolutionary invention and how it has transformed the way we communicate. The roots of the telephone can be traced back to the mid-19th century, a period marked by rapid technological advancement and innovation. The quest to send voice messages over distances began with the work of several inventors. You see, the idea of transmitting sound was not entirely new. Scientists had been experimenting with electricity and sound for decades. But it was Alexander Graham Bell, a Scottish-born inventor, who is most famously credited with inventing the first practical telephone in 1876. Bell was not just a brilliant inventor, he was also a passionate teacher of the deaf. His work with the deaf community deeply influenced his understanding of sound and speech. This unique perspective spurred him on in his quest to create a device that could transmit voice. On March 10, 1876, Bell famously uttered the words, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you," into his newly invented device. This marked the first successful demonstration of the telephone. Can you imagine the excitement in that moment? A device that could carry human voice over wires. It was nothing short of magical. However, Bell wasn't the only one working on similar technology. Elisha Gray, an American inventor, filed a patent for a similar device on the very same day as Bell. This led to a fierce legal battle over the invention of the telephone, a battle that would continue for years. In the end, Bell was awarded the patent. But Gray's contributions to the field of telecommunications cannot be overlooked. As the telephone began to gain traction, it wasn't long before it became a commercial success. The first telephone exchange was established in New Haven, Connecticut, in 1878. This was a pivotal moment in history, as it allowed multiple telephones to connect to one another through a central switchboard. Operators, often women, would manually connect calls by plugging wires into the appropriate jacks. This system of connecting calls would remain in place for decades, and it was the beginning of a new era in communication. The 1880s and 1890s saw an explosion of telephone use in the United States and around the world. Companies like the Bell Telephone Company began to expand their networks, laying down miles of wire to connect cities and towns. By the end of the 19th century, there were over 1 million telephones in use in the United States alone. Can you imagine that? 1 million people, all able to communicate with one another instantly. But the telephone was not without its challenges. Early telephones were often plagued by issues such as static, poor sound quality, and limited range. The technology was still in its infancy, and inventors were hard at work trying to improve it. One significant advancement came in 1881, when Johann Philipp Reis, a German inventor, developed a telephone that could transmit musical tones and human speech more clearly. Although Reis's invention was not commercially successful, it laid the groundwork for future developments. As the 20th century dawned, the telephone continued to evolve. The introduction of the rotary dial in the early 1900s revolutionized how people made calls. No longer did you have to rely on an operator to connect you. You could dial the number yourself. This innovation made the telephone even more accessible and user-friendly. The rise of the telephone also had a profound impact on society. It changed the pace of life, allowing people to communicate instantly rather than waiting for letters to arrive. It brought families closer together, enabling them to stay in touch despite geographical distances. Businesses began to thrive as communication became more efficient. The telephone was not just a tool, it was a catalyst for social change. However, the telephone was not universally embraced. Some people viewed it with skepticism, fearing it would lead to a decline in face-to-face communication. Others were concerned about privacy and eavesdropping. These concerns were not unfounded, as the early telephone lines were often susceptible to tapping. As the years went by, technology continued to advance. The introduction of the long-distance telephone service in the early 20th century allowed people to communicate across vast distances. The first transcontinental telephone line was completed in 1915, connecting New York to San Francisco. This was a monumental achievement, demonstrating the potential of the telephone to bridge vast distances. World War I further accelerated the development of telephone technology. The military recognized the importance of communication on the battlefield, leading to advancements in telephone systems and infrastructure. After the war, these technologies trickled down to civilian use, making telephones more reliable and widespread. The 1920s and 1930s saw the rise of the telephone as a household staple. The design of telephones began to evolve, with the introduction of more aesthetically pleasing models. The iconic black rotary phone became a symbol of the era. It was during this time that the concept of area codes was introduced, allowing for more efficient call routing. The post-World War II era brought about even more changes. The introduction of touch-tone dialing in the 1960s marked a significant shift in how people interacted with their phones. No longer did you have to spin a dial. You could simply press buttons to make a call. This innovation made dialing faster and more convenient. The 1980s and 1990s ushered in the era of mobile phones. The first mobile phones were bulky and expensive, but they paved the way for a new way of communicating. Suddenly, people could make calls on the go, breaking free from the constraints of landlines. The technology improved rapidly, and by the late 1990s, mobile phones became increasingly compact and affordable. With the advent of the Internet in the late 20th century, communication underwent another profound transformation. Voice over Internet Protocol, VoIP technology emerged, allowing people to make calls over the Internet. Companies like Skype revolutionized long-distance communication, making it possible to connect with loved ones around the world for free. As we entered the 21st century, smartphones became the new norm. These devices combined the functionality of a telephone with that of a computer, allowing us to communicate, browse the Internet, and access a world of information, all from the palm of our hands. The smartphone revolutionized not just communication, but our entire way of life. Today, we rely on our phones for everything. We text, we call, we video chat, we share our lives on social media. The telephone has evolved from a simple device for voice communication into an essential tool for modern living. It has connected us in ways we never thought possible, breaking down barriers and bringing people closer together. As we look to the future, it's exciting to think about where the telephone will go next. With advancements in artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and other emerging technologies, the way we communicate is bound to continue evolving. The telephone has come a long way since Bell's first call, and it's clear that its journey is far from over. So, the next time you pick up your phone, take a moment to appreciate the incredible history behind it. From the early experiments of inventors to the smartphones we carry in our pockets today, the telephone has shaped the way we connect with one another in profound ways. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our innate desire to communicate. And who knows what the future holds? One thing is certain: the telephone will continue to play a vital role in our lives for generations to come.